your energy crashes throughout the day, or you're a biohacker looking to optimize your energy, productivity, and focus, this podcast is for you. I am Dr. Evan Hirsch, and I will be your host on your journey to resolving fatigue and optimizing your energy. And we'll be interviewing some of the top leaders in the world on fatigue resolution. Welcome. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Fix Your Fatigue podcast. So glad that you're joining us here today, because today we're going to be talking about endurance sports, hormones, and fatigue with my friend, Laurie Villarreal. So let's learn about Laurie. So she is an endurance athlete and coach turned functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioner, gives high achieving women the tools and support they need to optimize their health and thrive at work and home. Her practical application of wisdom across a variety of healing modalities goes beyond the everyday advice and guides women to master their energy, stress, and blood sugar to take back control of their health and hormones. Extraordinary physical feats and leading a community of hundreds of athletes was Laurie's world until her health turned upside down because of lifestyle-related hormone issues. She now helps women overcome similar struggles so they can get back to feeling their best and chasing their wildest dreams. Laurie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Excellent. So you went from coaching endurance athletes to helping women with hormone-related energy, stress, blood sugar issues. Can you tell us more about why you made that transition?
Yeah, I made that transition because I started having health issues, as you just explained. I started having health issues myself, and it took a good while before I decided, like, this is not the right place for me. I'm not only did I put myself in a place where I was, training really hard, doing very long distance events, climbing, running up and down mountains, doing them all around the world. I was training clients to do this too. I was training my clients to do this. And then here I am, supposed to be the good example of how to do things. And I at one point I could feel my body falling apart. Mm-hmm. And so I started digging deep into the science about, I'm doing all the things right, or so I thought, and why, I'm doing all the fitness things right, and the nutrition and recovery and taking the supplements and, doing all the things, getting my sleep. Sleep was huge, so important for me at that time in my life. But yet I was feeling like sicker and sicker. And eventually I got to a point where I could not even hardly get out of bed. I could hardly walk to the grocery store. I could hardly walk up the stairs in my house or remember, did I give my dog medication that morning? Or, my husband was asking me a question or I'd ask my husband a question and then I'd ask him the same question 5 minutes later. And he's like, you just asked me that. And I was like, where's my mind gone? I felt like I had lost my mind. I had lost my energy. I went from athlete that had all these dreams of ambitions of doing all these crazy things with my with my life and my body, and then suddenly I couldn't do any of it. So in that moment where I had realized, I'm trying to run a business, I can barely get myself out of bed. I don't know how I got here, and I just want to figure it out, and then I want to help other people like me, because I knew how frustrating that was, to be wanting to do all of these things with your life and then just suddenly you're just stopped. and I felt like I was living a healthy life. I felt like I knew what it meant to be healthy, and I was trying to do all of those things. And actually that's what got me into an endurance running anyways. I got into running because I thought it was going to keep me healthy for years and years and years. And then of course I took a path of the extreme path. I took the path of let's, do the extreme running. And it was one of the contributors. I know it wasn't the only thing, but it was one of the contributors that led me down the path of just feeling my worst. And then it's been years of working to get myself back. And yeah, having gone through that, I knew that and also while having gone through that, it was very hard to find anybody that knew what was going on or how to help, or like so many doctors turned me away. And a lot of doctors were like, there's nothing I can do for you. So I thought, like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something out there, and there's got to be a way to help people. And, you know, I have like the nutrition and fitness background. I wanted to take it to another level. And so I just left that world and made that transition in that moment.
Excellent. Well, thank
Yeah.
goodness that you did. So now you can help all those people, right?
Yeah. Like they say, your mess becomes your mission, or is that
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened to me.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because especially about the sports, the endurance sports that you were doing, because we talk about with people who have chronic fatigue, how there is this Goldilocks dose of exercise that you need to do. And what's really interesting is that now with long haulers, we're seeing all of these people who were really healthy and they were doing endurance sports, or they were exercising on a regular basis, and it ended up triggering or contributing to the issues that they're having today with long haulers. And so let's talk about how endurance sports negatively affect hormones.
Yes. Well, I mean, exercise is a stressor, you know, and stress is not necessarily a bad thing, but when we're overloading ourselves on a regular basis with stress, it can be. And we can certainly overload ourselves with exercise as a stressor. And endurance sports is one of the ways that we can do that. And one of the things that I would see as a coach is that most often we don't consider, when we're exercising and we have like an exercise regime, we're not always considering the other stressors in our lives, you know, because we need to recover from that exercise. You need to do your workout and recover from it before you go to the next workout. But you also have to recover from all the other things in your life, like, you know, a virus included. Maybe you get sick, or maybe you're having stress in your relationship, or whatever it may be, you know, environmental toxins, frequent travel. There are so many stressors. And then you add endurance sports, and it's quite often putting you in a stress state, a chronic stress state. And I believe that that's what was going on with me. Because when I look back over the years, you know, there were signs that I was chronically stressed, and it took a while before I had that like fall where there was a trigger that just was like, that's it, you're done. But I was in a chronic stress state for some time. I was doing what I thought I needed to do to recover. But not only was it shifting me into that stress state more often, but I started recognizing, like, later on, not in the moment, that it was creating blood sugar issues for me. And diabetes runs in my family. So as a young adult, like as a teenager, I was always tracking my blood sugar. And I knew my blood sugar was good for many, many years. And then suddenly it just it started going like, I can't control it. I don't know what's going on. Well, you know, what was going on is that I was chronically stressed. And even if I thought I was eating well, and even if I was exercising, and even if I was getting sleep, you know, like I was in this stress state. So my body was having a hard time recovering from other things. And yeah, the downfall effect that has when you're in that stress state, like it started affecting my thyroid. So my thyroid started, I started getting to be hypothyroid. I even had alopecia areata for a while. It's like I could see, I could just see that things were kind of falling apart little by little. Like my body had been under stress for so long that it was just no longer able to handle it.
Yeah, that's such an important point, where it doesn't matter where the stress is coming from, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical. It's got to be dealt with. You've got to make sure that you're addressing all of those different components. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and then you can get more technical about, you know, like what's happening on the brain level. And then like when you're for women, how that affects your menstrual cycle. And then that's a pretty important thing there. And then you're not ovulating, and it like I said, downregulating your thyroid. Of course, that's having a lot of effects there as well. And I started feeling them all, and they all just kind of came crashing down at one time.
So all this advice that we get about how important it is to exercise, it sounds like there are some caveats, or there are some situations where we have to pay attention. So then how do we know? We're doing our best. We're trying to exercise every day, however we can. How do we know when exercise is not our friend, or the amount that we're exercising is not our friend?
Yeah, well, I think a big one is that when you're not recovering in a normal way anymore. So say you used to go for a long run or go for a run, and then the next time you went for a run, you felt just as fresh as that last run. I mean, it happens that not every workout's going to be the same, but when you start to feel a decline in fitness, that's usually a sign that you're not recovering well anymore, and that you're overdoing it. But then there are also, lots of other signs, like you start having like energy issues. You can also start feeling more moodiness or irritability. You can also start having sleep issues, or leg cramps. Like that's a common one, leg cramps in the middle of the night. Or for me, it was like I would do a workout and I couldn't make it through the day. Like the workout would exhaust me so much that I needed to take like naps, like not even before, like by noon, I was needing a nap to recover from my workouts because they were so intense. So yeah, when you just start feeling like your body is, and I like to also think like for women to check in on your menstrual cycle if you do have one, because that can also send you some clues. And gut health as well. Like if you just start to notice that your body is sending you signs that things aren't quite like they used to be, that could mean that your body is under more stress than it used to be, and you're not recovering from it.
And that's interesting too, because becoming amenorrheic or not having a period, oftentimes women are happy about that.
Yes.
I know that a lot of women in college and professional, semi-pro, whatever it is, sports, that when they're doing intense sports, that oftentimes their period stops.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So why is that? And it sounds like it's not actually the best thing for them.
No, it's not the best thing for them. Like eventually at the brain level, your body is like putting you into survival mode. And once you're in survival mode, you're in chronic stress survival mode, the body doesn't want you to be procreating. It's like, we're going to shut that down. And then you're not ovulating anymore. And therefore you're, like it's shut all that whole system down, and then you no longer have your periods. And that usually comes from stress of some type. And for athletes, this is often having to do a lot with the physical stress that you're putting your body under. Of course, like I mentioned too, that it's, we have to consider all of the stressors that we put in our bucket, and exercise is one of them. But there are lots of others that go in there that we have to consider as well.
So then, is that sort of intense exercise of the endurance athlete or the professional or semi-pro or amateur athlete that ends up causing the lack of period, is that healthy, or is it not? It's not.
No,
okay.
Women need to ovulate as long as possible, as long as they can, as long as they're not having any other like health issues that would, like cancer or something else where there is some reason why they really shouldn't, but I can't think of anything at this moment. Can you?
No.
But it's very healthy to ovulate on a regular basis. We need that production of progesterone. We need to be cycling for women to be at their best, to be optimal. And in the athlete world, a lot of women can think that like you're at your best when you're not having a period, or even, all types of women have made comments throughout my life, like, oh, I don't have my period. Like, I don't have to, like life is better without it. I can work and not have to worry about the period, the PMS, and, not knowing that PMS and all of these things, it's not because of the period. It's because of, probably other stressors that are that are coming around that same time, and that is causing the PMS. It's not the period that causes the PMS. So so yeah, it's very healthy. And eventually, like, I wasn't like competing at a very high level, but I did have, as I was coaching, I did have a lot of women that would struggle to get their periods back when they wanted to get pregnant. And so that's also pretty important. You don't want to lose your period if at some point you want to get pregnant,
Right.
because it's going to be hard to get that back.
Right. So then do you recommend that people don't do those sports, or is there a way to do those sports in a more healthy way?
Yeah, there's a way to do it more healthy.
Okay.
And I would also, I would I would also say, like, know yourself. And sometimes there comes a point where you have to make the decision that, like, that with your life, with your situation, with whatever is going on, that sport is not doing well for you. So you have to make a decision to do something else, or to do it differently, or but there is, like, if you can minimize your stress, if you can find ways to recover better, to recover more, if you can really build up if you can get the sleep that you need, and it's quality sleep, if you're really focusing on everything around recovery and making sure that you recover well from your workouts, you have a much better chance of, not your body not falling apart. And that's really that's what we really need, is just to be able to recover from the training that we do, to recover from our everyday stressors, and before we go back at it again. And so it's just like, I use tools like the Oura Ring, or there are plenty of trackers out there that can track your recovery and how well you're recovering. And be honest with yourself when you see your Oura Ring or your Whoop or one of these saying, you're not well recovered, you're not well recovered, you're not well recovered, because I've seen it happen. And then you're just like, oh, well, I'm just going to go out and do my regular workout anyways, and you ignore it. So it's important to really listen to your body. And when you know that you need extra recovery, and then maybe that like going as hard as you normally do isn't a good idea, to turn it down. It's really a matter of just adjusting in line with what's best for you and your recovery. And in addition, for women, I like to teach women to exercise with their cycles. So that means that giving yourself more rest during the luteal phase or the menstrual phase, and just doing the harder workouts more in the other phases of your menstrual cycle. So really working with the menstrual cycle can help put less stress on your body and give you a better chance of recovering from these workouts.
Yeah, that's really wise.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do, but that doesn't mean that everybody is going, like, I'm not saying go out there and run marathons, but there's a lot you can do to support your body to be able to handle more and be more resilient. But at the same time, there's that tipping point where you can easily go too far and do too much.
And so some of the tools that you're using in order to make people more resilient, are you talking about as their lifestyle modification, are there supplements, are there mindset stuff? What sort of things are you using?
All of it. But I definitely love using the data to see what's going on. So like an Oura Ring or the Whoop to see how well you're recovering. So tracking like resting heart rate, tracking HRV, I love using continuous glucose monitors to see how well your body is responding, because with the continuous glucose monitor, we can see if your body is being stressed out from the workouts that you're doing. And we can try to optimize that so that you're maybe working out at a better time, or you're having food at a better time, so that it's stressing your body out less. It's making sure you're getting the right nutrients, you're getting enough protein, you're getting enough fiber, your body's detoxing well, your gut health is good. It's making sure that you're just in the optimal state. First of all, like, you're in the optimal state before you go out and try to do too much. And then in addition to that, there are supplements, like I love adaptogens that can help you handle more stress. And then also getting the supplements like that you might need because you're under more stress. So of course you're going to need more things like magnesium or B vitamins, and vitamin C even. So like looking at each person as an individual, of course, is what I do in my practice, but just making sure that you have your body in an optimal state when you're training hard, and that you have the recovery that you need, that you're prioritizing it.
Excellent. So fear not, those of you who are exercising hard right now. There is a way to do it healthily and without consequences. So then let's talk about these individuals who are at more risk for experiencing negative effects of these intense training loads. Who is at more risk?
Yeah, I would say females, because of their fluctuating hormones. So like often we want to go out and do exactly what the men are doing, follow the same training program, do the same workouts. And I think really recognizing that that menstrual cycle is going to change things up. So if you can train in sync with your menstrual cycle, that is very helpful. And then in addition to that, I would say that if you already have a heavy stress load in your life, if you are already feeling signs of, severe fatigue or chronic fatigue, starting an endurance training program or even a heavy training program, sometimes even an exercise program can be too much. Sometimes, like something light and restorative is more beneficial than something heavy and hard. And of course, there are probably other groups that I haven't mentioned, but I would say, certainly, because we're talking about fatigue on your podcast, I would say certainly if you're already tired, getting out there and doing a marathon training program is likely not going to help.
Yeah, I think that would be quite painful for, 99% of the people that we see initially.
Yeah. And I'm, I'd be curious if how many of the people that you see has that contributed to their fatigue? Have they been athletes, endurance athletes or CrossFit athletes or, extreme athletes in some way for a long period of time before things came crashing down?
Yeah, it's actually quite common. And, we don't, in our program, we don't really have people exercising or starting to implement it until their energy is up at around a 7 or an 8 out of 10, with 10 being ideal energy. They come to us with like a 3, 4, 5 out of 10 sort of thing. So I definitely agree. So then in terms of the differences between women and men, as you were alluding to, like what are those major differences that we need to be aware of, or how are the hormones different?
Well, men are primarily cycling in a 24-hour cycle, and women who are menstruating around a 28-ish day cycle. So because of that, like men's testosterone is going to be peaking in the morning, and women's peaks like in the middle of the month. So this is going to affect this is going to affect a lot of things, like how well we recover, how well we can handle stress, how resilient we are. There's going to be like at the end of the month when the hormones decline, and then also progesterone in the middle of the month when estrogen is higher than it does in the beginning of the month when the hormones are just starting to rise again. So because of the shifts in the hormones throughout the 28-day cycle, which is very different from a men's 24-hour cycle, that we can see differences in recovery. And so, yeah, I think it's important that we keep that in mind when we're trying to plan our recovery program or our training program, or how, like our exercise program.
That is so interesting. I haven't heard of that before. And it makes a lot of sense. Most of the people who end up with ME/CFS are women, and which stands for those listening, myalgic encephalitis, which is what chronic fatigue syndrome is called in Europe and beyond. And then also now in long haulers, we're seeing that the largest group are women under the age of 50, and a lot of those are athletic. So it's really interesting um, how it sounds like like you're saying, things are very different for women in this context. And if you're going to be athletic, you really need the guidance of somebody like you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very supportive to have somebody that can help you train in the right way for your hormones. Men and women, but
Right.
women, like, because we have, and all the study, like so many studies are done on men. And then we try to replicate what they're doing, and our hormones look different, like as I just explained. So we can find something that works better with our cycles, and that supports our recovery and our resilience.
Excellent. So let's talk about prevention. So let's say I'm a female.
Yes.
And I'm fairly active and athletic, and I'm concerned now about everything that you're talking about, and I'm concerned about crashing. So what can I do to prevent having energy issues or hormonal issues? And you've mentioned this a couple of times, but
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of coming back to maybe some more of the specifics, or if you want to dive into like, what is the most helpful thing to decrease the stress in somebody's life? I know it's a multi-pronged approach. I know there's a number of different causes, but what would you say is like the biggest thing that like shifts the needle for folks to decrease their overall stress?
Ooh.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, there are like, I don't know where to go, because there are so many things. But I think what I see is most often it's in our head, it's our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Most often it's how we see things in our lives, what we say to ourselves on a daily basis when we're confronted with a stressful event. Where does our mind go? Is our mind telling our body we need to stress out? Or is our mind, like saying we've got everything under control, we're fine? And this is, this is what I was teaching to athletes for years when you're running long distance events, that we have to like train the mind. It's all in the mind. Because it's very important what we can accomplish based on what we believe we can accomplish. So a lot of times when people are under a lot of stress, I find that it's starting with their beliefs. It's starting with what they're saying to themselves on a daily basis without recognizing it. So sometimes I like to check in there, because there are a lot of things we can't change, and it's just recognizing those things. And then there are also a lot of things that we can, and then we can tackle those things, once we've had a moment to really recognize that, like, we can turn the dial down just with our thoughts alone, starting there. I don't know if you would agree in your practice, if you
Absolutely.
also see that, if you also see that having a big effect.
Yeah, if you asked me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have agreed, but that's because I didn't know anything about mindset. And once I learned and I saw how it affected my life and my energy and my mood, and I applied it to the people who were going through my program, night and day difference. It's really incredible to see the transformation that happens and how important it is. And it's not woo-woo. Like, there is science behind all these things, gratitude, envisioning, and all these things that you're referring to that are so important.
Yeah.
So
I see it in my continuous glucose monitors that I use with myself and with my clients. You can see that your thoughts alone can make your blood sugar increase, which we know, like, no food involved, no exercise involved, thoughts alone can make your blood sugar increase, because your cortisol is increasing.
That is amazing. I wasn't aware of that. So your thoughts change cortisol, cortisol affects insulin, insulin affects your blood sugars. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So then let's kind of stick with some of the idea around the tools. So you talked about the Oura Ring, which I also have, and you talked about the Whoop. So in terms of the things that you're looking at there, what are the main components? You talked a little bit about sleep, HRV, lowering heart rate during the night. Like, what do you think do you like the readiness number that is given? Are there certain components that you're looking at more than others in order to get certain data?
Yeah, I was using some of this data before they had things like the Oura Ring. So before before those existed, I was just like, take your resting heart rate every morning, because if it starts to trend upward, or even if like you can see it, you do a heavy training the next day, your resting heart rate usually is elevated. If it's not back down the day after, then you're not well recovered. Or if it's high, then maybe there's something else that you haven't thought about, like staying well hydrated, or, you know, having a nutritious meal, getting enough protein, or getting enough sleep, or all those other things. So looking at your resting heart rate, how stable is it? And is it going up and down? And does it go up 10 points? Because I've heard that from people before, like they had a couple glasses of wine, the next day their resting heart rate went up 10 points. That's a lot. That's a lot. So you could look at that alone and just get some ideas there about how well you recovered, how fit you are in the morning to go back out at it. Because that's sometimes what we do, is we ignore that maybe we're not well recovered and we just go back at it again. And then the HRV, I love. HRV can also tell you, like, the numbers I see vary a lot. But I like to see them in, like, to me, like the higher they go, the fitter you are. And so we want to see those numbers in the higher range. And if you're somebody who's like, oh, my HRV is hanging around 20, and I don't go much beyond that, I would say,
maybe.
I would say, like you might not be in the place to really push it too hard, so checking at where the status of that is, and that trend also, more than what it looks like in a day, I like to look at the trends. So to me, that's more important. So how is your HRV trending? How is your resting heart rate trending? Is it trending up for your HRV? Because that means that you are likely recovering well and doing better. Or is it trending down? And same with your heart rate. Is your heart rate trending up, which means you're not recovering well, or is it staying stable? And if it's trending down too much, then yeah, that's something else that we got to look at. And then in addition to that, sleep is so important. How is the quality? Because a lot of times people are getting enough sleep, like they're saying, oh, I get 10 hours, or I get 8 hours, or I get 9, they're getting lots of sleep. What's the quality of the sleep? How much REM sleep and how much deep sleep are you getting? Because that's important too, because you need that to, like, especially, like your muscles need to recover, your body needs to physically recover to go back out and do all the things you have on your list to do.
This is such great data. Most humans think about the data that they need for their health as being the lab tests, the blood tests that they get once a year at their doctor's office, right? And yet you're sharing with us all these things that somebody can get on a daily basis, which is so much more important, right? Absolutely. The other thing that's interesting to me is that oftentimes we get data from intuition. But as humans, we're so disconnected brain to body, right? So if our intuition isn't great, or we're just like, okay, I'm just going to keep pushing through, which so many people do and get in trouble, right? Then this is just such a great way to check and to see with an objective reading that can give you a lot of data. The other thing that I've noticed also with heart rate is that heart rates will increase if you eat a food you're not supposed to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's and it's something that's very readily accessible, right?
Yeah.
Just grab your heart, your pulse, wherever you want to check it, and measure it for, do you like 15 seconds or do you like 60 seconds?
Yeah. Well, I like 60 seconds.
Okay. You're like, I want the full deal. I don't want this. Do it for 15 seconds and multiply it, right? Yeah.
It's also a nice moment just to take a quiet, still moment, right? It's a little meditative. Do the 60 seconds.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, great. Well, so you work with people one-on-one?
I do, yes.
And you have a virtual practice, so you're across the world? I
am, that's correct. I'm based in Amsterdam from the US, but I work with, most of my clients are from Europe or the US, Canada as well.
Excellent. And people can come visit you, and you can take them to the what are the wonderful, you've got Rembrandt, and you have Van Gogh, right?
Yes, and the Rijksmuseum. We've got lots of cool things to see here in Amsterdam.
Yes. Excellent. And where can people find you? What's your website?
My website is laurievillarreal.com, which might be a little bit tricky to write. But I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes.
Yep.
All right. And in addition, like you can find me at, like, I have a couple of quizzes, yourhormonequiz.com and yourbloodsugarquiz.com, where you can go and see, like, check in with how are your hormones doing to see if your everyday life is affecting your hormones, and then and your blood sugar as well. So
brilliant. Yes. Yeah, we will drop those links below. Laurie, thanks so much for joining me today. It was really wonderful learning from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed this, and thanks to everybody who's listened.
I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more fatigued people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have on fatigue is one of my absolute favorite things to do. If you'd like more information, please sign up for my newsletter, where I share all important facts and information about fatigue, from the foods and supplements to the programs and products that I use personally and recommend to others so that they can live their best lives. Just go to fixyourfatigue.com/newsletter to sign up, and I will send you this great information. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for help with your fatigue, you can visit my website and work with us at fixyourfatigue.com. And remember, it's important that you have someone in your corner who is a credentialed healthcare professional to help you make changes. This is very important, especially when it comes to your health. Thanks for listening, and have an amazing